That's us.
Tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
It is good to be with all of you this morning. Last night, as many of us who pay attention to the news know, a major presidential candidate was shot, and others were injured and killed. And as I sought the right words for this morning, our Unitarian Universalist Association issued a statement. Here it is. Unitarian Universalism believes in the right of free speech and the democratic process. Attacks like those at Saturday's political rally weaken democracy, and the Unitarian Universalist Association condemns this attack. At a time when democracy is already at risk, these events will only make our political environment more precarious. As we prepare to meet this moment, we must return to our spiritual grounding and faithful practice. Take a breath, reflect together, wait for emerging truth over quick speculation, anchor yourself in communities and relationships that foster resilience, liberation, and strategy, cultivate nuance, and seek out deep wisdom, political analysis, and spiritual grounding, as misinformation will be rampant. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition, the statement continues, is rooted in the values of human dignity, justice, compassion, and democratic principles. We will remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting our democracy and the integrity of its principles and the rights of all its people. Let us keep love at the center. We are in this together. So come, let us gather together. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, and welcome to People's Church. Let's take a moment and just settle in together. Maybe you are like me, someone who's happy to be here today, to see friends and engage in meaningful conversations. Let's take a breath together and know we have arrived. Maybe you've had a rough morning or a week and you need some community spirit and love. Let's take a breath together and know your community is here for you. Maybe it's your first or second time here and you're not sure what to expect. Let's take a breath together and know there are no expectations. You are in a safe place to be you. And maybe the world and all the politics just feel so overwhelming and impossible right now. Let's take a breath together and know that at People's Church, you don't have to feel alone. We are here for each other. My name is Sharon Sauter, and I'm glad you're here today.
And good morning from me. Hello. I invite you to stretch yourself upward, find a good singing posture to sing our opening song together. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
If you're lighting a chalice on Zoom, we ask that you write in the chalice box where you're lighting it from. And Mac, if you'd come up and light the chalice for me, please. Why a flaming chalice? The question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessings overflowing. A cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst. A cup of wine for celebration and dedication. The flame of truth. The fire of purification. Oil for anointing and healing. Out of chaos, fear, and horror. Thus was the symbol crafted a generation ago. So may it be for us in these days of uncertainty, sorrow, and rage, and a light to warm our souls and guide us home.
In addition to our chalice lit here at People's Church, we have chalice flames kindled by members of our Zoom congregation this morning. There are flames in Paw Paw, in Westwood, in the Millwood neighborhood, and in Parkview Hills. What a gift it is to be together in time, even when we are not together in place. As we continue, a couple of small announcements. First, following the service today, we're having a reception for our art wall artists, so you can get a chance to talk to the people who made some of this art just right here in the Commons, and there will be some snacks. I hope you stay. I believe everything is for sale, so if you have something that needs to come home with you, it's a great moment to make that happen. And our continued book circle on the book Me and White Supremacy continues today. We'll be meeting at 12:30 today in room L1, which is down the stairs by the front door. There'll be lunch and childcare. This is a congregation that supports one another in good times and in hard times. One of the ways that we do that is we take time when we gather to mark the joys and sorrows and milestones of our lives. So if you have something you wish to share with our gathered community today, if you're on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat box. So I think you called it the chalice box, which I like even more. So please type it into the chalice box on Zoom. And if you're here in person, I invite you to come forward, place a stone in our bowl of water as a symbol of how we are all holding what each of us is going through. And if you care to, you can speak briefly and share your name about what is happening. Now I place a few more joys and sorrows for all that we're holding in our hearts today, all in the wider community and our wider world. Oh, and a last joy came in on Zoom from Dolores Strom. For the joy for the chance to work with children practicing nonviolence, and sorrow for the examples of violence and division being set in our country. So now I place stones for what remains unspoken. Sources of reason and radiance, sources of courage and compassion. Keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this day. May the suffering be soothed. May the weary find rest. May the sick be tended. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. May all of us know we are wrapped in a love that surrounds us always, a web that connects us to all that exists. People's people are generous people. We know that it is your generous financial contributions that are the main source of funding for this congregation. And one of my great joys is to see your names on donor lists out in the community, whether that's sponsoring meals at Ministry with Community, whether that's helping people get early childhood education through KC Ready Fours, whether that's in the very fast Zoom scroll of donors that went by at the Isaac public meeting this week. This is one of the ways we make our values real in the world. We organize people and we organize money. And I love and appreciate and admire how much people's people do that both within this community and within our wider world. So keep up the good work. The offering will now be received.
Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone. Today's reading is from The Almond by Albert Camus. Our task as humans is to find the few principles that will calm the infinite anguish of free souls. We must mend what has been torn apart, make justice imaginable again in a world so obviously unjust, give happiness a meaning once more to people imprisoned by the misery of the century. Naturally, it is a superhuman task, but superhuman is the term for tasks we take a long time to accomplish. That's all. Let us know our aims then, holding fast to the mind, even if force puts on a thoughtful or a comfortable face in order to seduce us. The first thing is not to despair. Let us not listen to too much to those who proclaim that the world is at an end. Civilizations do not die so easily, and even in our world, if our world were to collapse, it would not have been the first. It is indeed true that we live in tragic times, but too many people confuse tragedy with despair.
Our second reading is entitled How to Survive the End of the World. But I feel like it is good advice for just about every day. Get to know your neighbors, feed them, let them feed you. Develop the muscle of generosity like you are training for a giving ultra marathon. Share everything you can with anyone who asks, and ask for what you need. Get in touch with your body. You will need it, and it knows things. Pay attention to what is happening below your neck. Tell the truth. Tell it to yourself first. Sit at the feet of your most vulnerable neighbors and your own most vulnerable places. They have the most to teach you about survival. Listen. Remember your ancestors and the things they survived. Find the resilience that is your birthright and the courage that made way for your life. Practice taking risks. Show up in every struggle where someone is fighting for their dignity, because that is how we will all survive. Learn about reparations and native sovereignty. Double down on exorcising supremacy systems from your soul. Learn to be tender. Refuse to be hardened. Let your heart be moved every time. Root in the place you are. Learn its history, learn its geography, learn its seasons. Sing a lot. And dance, make art, make love, rest luxuriously, eat pie.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere.
If fascism should arise in the States, what in your past performance would constitute a pattern or framework of resistance? I first read this question about 13 years ago. I was in my seminary apartment skimming a book of essays by an important Unitarian Universalist ethicist, trying to absorb just enough to participate in the discussion that would happen the next day in a professor's apartment. The professor, Gary Dorian, was once the chaplain at Kalamazoo College. A fact that didn't mean anything to me then, but felt a little bit providential in retrospect, right? But he was leading the special independent study class for the Unitarian Universalists on campus. And so there would be just a few of us sitting on the couches in his living room. And it was not the sort of class that you could show up for not having done your homework. But the question stopped me in my frantic tracks. If fascism should arise in the States, what in your past performance would constitute a pattern or framework of resistance? James Luther Adams wrote this question in an autobiographical essay published about 50 years ago. He writes about his time studying theology in Germany in the 1920s and the 1930s as the Nazi movement was on the rise. He witnessed it firsthand, and he saw so many religious people and religious leaders that he respected either convert to the Nazi ideology or not resist in meaningful ways. So he asked a question of himself. If fascism should arise in the States, what in your past performance would constitute a pattern or framework of resistance? And this question was an awakening for Adams. He realized that he did not have a good answer, that he didn't have that muscle to resist, that he could easily become a person who just sort of went along and didn't oppose what he knew was wrong. He writes, I could give only a feeble answer to this question. My principal political activities had been reading the newspaper and voting. I had preached sermons on the Depression or in defense of strikers, and occasionally I uttered protests against censorship. But I had no adequate conception of citizen participation. He found himself falling short, and so he took action. He saw the best possibility for resistance to fascism and other authoritarian projects in voluntary associations, which is a fancy way of saying groups of people who are broadly concerned with public policy and the public good. So he writes of his new commitments, I plunged into voluntary associational activity, concerning myself with race relations, civil liberties, housing problems. I joined with newly formed acquaintances in the founding of the Independent Voters of Illinois, and at the same time, I participated in precinct organization, becoming a doorbell ringer, and also consulting with party leaders in back rooms. This joining together with others, this work in voluntary associations to make the world better, becomes the basis for the sort of the ethical framework of this important theologian and ethicist. He later writes, by their groups, by their associational fruits shall ye know them. If the theological or theological ethical commitment does not issue an associational preference or transformation, it is to this extent not yet clear or meaningful, which when you take the theological essay language away from that, he says that a belief or a value matters as much as it leads us into relationship with others or partnership to transform ourselves and the world. I'm not sure if I fully agree with that ethical framework, but I think it is a powerful one and worthy of our time today. Does your belief matter if it doesn't put you into action and into relationship? Maybe not. So a question that I receive several times a year from People's People is a variation on, what can I do as an individual to make a difference? Maybe the person wants to stop the rising tide of fascism, or mitigate climate change, or protect trans folks, or one of the long list of things that are just not right in this world, right? And the truest truth I know is that for an individual to make a difference, you need to find a group. You can't do it as an individual. In groups, we have power, and we can make change. So, when I first read this essay 13 years ago, fascism felt far away. It was kind of this abstract idea. It was the first Obama administration. I imagine some of you remember that time. And I was living and studying at this progressive, diverse, multiracial seminary in Harlem, in New York City. And I felt hopeful for our country in ways that feel far off now. Maybe you all remember that time. So much felt possible then, at least for many of us. But I did know about fascism because before seminary, I spent a couple of years working with Women in Black, which is this feminist, anti-militarist, anti-fascist organization in Belgrade, Serbia, Eastern Europe. So there, in the mid-2000s, fascism was present. It was a viable political party. It was a force in culture, and it was terrifying. So my work was largely English language, grant writing, and communications and translation. But I also participated in their creative protests against war, nationalism, and religious fundamentalism. Women in Black are the bravest people I've ever met. And they were in the streets protesting against wars and nationalism throughout the wars in the former Yugoslavia. And they gave me a framework of resistance, even if it didn't feel like I would need it. So here's a photo of one of those protests. Reed put it up on the screen. So this is me. I'm in the white sweater with a very fake, very large pregnant belly on me. My friend Boban is standing right behind me. He's dressed as a soldier. Boban is an amazing Serbian LGBTQ activist who, as part of his activism, became a contestant on Serbia's Big Brother TV show to try to show people that being queer is not that unusual. He and his beloved now live in Canada, where they've received political asylum. And he helps resettle other queer refugees now. But this protest happened outside one of the main cathedrals of the Serbian Orthodox Church to protest their teachings about gender roles. So as the protest continued, and I wish I had video, but I don't, we started twirling around and transformed our costumes into things much less gender stereotypical. I went from pregnant to athlete. Boban transformed into an artist. So Women in Black taught me that resisting fascism means taking risks in public. The group was regularly shouted down by nationalists and fascists. At another protest, I was hit with rocks. But it also means joy and creativity, paying attention to aesthetics, and acting out the world we wanted for ourselves, even if it wasn't the world we had yet. So fast forward a few years, and my work shifted, my answer to this question shifted. I worked with voluntary associations. Yep, here's the photo number 2. I'm just doing a little biographical slideshow for you guys today. Oh, I'm even wearing the same stole. I forgot about that. So for my first ministry, I was an interim minister at a small church in Tennessee. And because of the religiosity of the South, having Reverend in front of my name meant a lot. So I was invited into public advocacy. So this is a picture, part of that. Here's me in my religious garb opposing a state constitutional amendment that made it harder for people to access abortion. So this image was a part of a series of clergy people standing in front of the No on One signs that they used in their media campaign to show that religious people could vote no, that religious values can call us to protect abortion access. Because of course, in all of the conversations about abortion, Anybody who is a person of faith is assumed to be against abortion, and we know that is not true. So that was part of making that visible. So in that context, resisting fascism, for me, meant listening to people more deeply involved in the work, letting them direct me and my title and my image in service to their broader campaign, lending my credibility and moral authority to worthy efforts. This is the strategy that made sense then. I was on a 2-year contract. I was not going to be the leader of anything happening in that community, right? But I could lend whatever power I had to the cause. There's a lot of different ways to do this work of voluntary associations. So I think we're due for our next slide. So some of you are in this picture. This is a picture from last summer, almost a year ago, of People's Church receiving an award from Isaac at a run, walk, roll event. I'm in the middle holding my kid's hand, surrounded by People's people, and Isaac is the congregation-based community organizing group that we are part of here. We work alongside 30 other congregations and other community organizations, and together we work to address racism, gun violence, and housing needs in our community, doing some of the most powerful work that's happening. We partner with others and build power to transform ourselves and the world. There are other photos I could have shared of this church and our many partners and our many groups within us, as we are ourselves a voluntary organization here at People's Church. And we are concerned with the public good. There could be photos of us learning and thinking and growing, of practicing living in the world that is better than this one, becoming beloved community, finding inspiration here to live out our love, our hope, and change. What we do here and are here is an answer to that question from James Luther Adams asked, an answer that I think he would approve of. So these are some of my answers to that powerful question. And now I turn to all of you. So it is our practice in these summer services to have, looks like today, about 20 minutes for small group conversation. We have some questions in the order of service. They're also on the screen. I believe on Zoom you get assigned randomly to a group, but if you're here in this room, I encourage you to, if you're sitting beside someone you know well, to turn in the other direction and talk to somebody that you maybe don't know quite as well, if you're up for it today. And our questions for conversation are, of course, the one that animated this whole project. If fascism should arise in the States, what in your past performance would constitute a pattern or framework of resistance? Number 2, how are you called to respond to our current circumstances? 3, how do your beliefs and values motivate you to join with others for the common good? So, time to chat. Thank you all.
I invite you to sing along with me. Please rise and embody your spirit. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us.
There's a television anchor who used to end his news broadcasts with, "If you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own." So may we go and do likewise. Let us go in peace and go in love.